Holocaust in cinema. From the 1940s to today, hundreds of documentary and feature films have dealt with the subject of Shoah, or catastrophe, the Holocaust in Hebrew. The systematic mass murder of 6 million Jews perpetrated by Nazi Germany and their allies, leading up to and during World War II. For Professor Shmulik Duvdevani from Tel Aviv University's Film and TV Department, Shoah, by French director Claude Lanzmann, is the greatest Holocaust film of all times.
This film is actually a monumental piece of art. It's a monumental piece of history. It's a monumental piece of philosophy. Any discussion regarding the aesthetics of film, and documentary film in particular, any discussions that relate to the connections between cinema and history, cinema and trauma, cinema and memory, should take this film as a starting point or as the basis for this kind of discussion.
Unlike other directors, Lanzmann refused to use any form of archival footage for his film. He believed that in order to prove that the Holocaust happened, you don't necessarily need the images of naked, decomposing corpses and mass starvation.
What Lanzmann is doing is dealing with the conflict between the image and the word, between the present and the past, between the testimony and what we actually see, what the image testifies for.
Lanzmann created his own style of interviewing, bringing to light shocking stories by survivors, witnesses, and perpetrators. The film was first released in 1985 and had a strong impact in Israel.
Many people in Israel actually experienced the issue of the Shoah through two historical events. One was the Eichmann trial, and one was the screening of Shoah.
According to Professor Duvdevani, in recent years the film has been neglected in Israel.
When Claude Lanzmann died, none of the channels, the Israeli channels, screened the film, not even parts of it, which is a shame. Of course, young students nowadays, who unfortunately are unfamiliar with the film, because the film is not screened too recently in Israel, which is a shame, because Israel is the place where this film should have been screened on a regular basis, especially on the Holocaust Memorial Day.
Can it be that Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List and Roman Polanski's Pianist are more accessible than Lanzmann's Shoah, which is over 9 long hours and was 11 years in the making?
Schindler's List, like many Hollywood films, deals with a certain story. Shoah is, of course, a film about the extermination of Jews. It's a story that actually tells you that you cannot tell the story of the Shoah. Shoah is a much more profound and elaborate work of art. But Steven Spielberg's film is going to be remembered as particularly because it's Steven Spielberg, particularly because it's Hollywood, particularly because it's won Oscars. And yet, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Shoah is not the only film Lanzmann made on the Holocaust. He made many other films using the 350 hours of leftover footage from Shoah. His last film, Shoah, Four Sisters, was released posthumously and focused on the memories of 4 female Holocaust survivors.
Claude Lanzmann died, but as we mentioned earlier, his legacy will survive forever.
Daniel Campos, I-24 News.